Okay, good evening to everyone. Welcome to the PLA APLA virtual camp. This is now our third camp activity. So we would like to inform to everyone to stay close at the presentation of our lecturer, and also please open your camera and lock your mic. So we can have any noise or distraction for the program. Okay, let us proceed to our activity with the beginning of our prayer, then Pathfinder Pledge and Law and Pathfinder Song. And then after that, we have a special number from appointed to leaders. Okay, let us proceed and go to the proper program. Thank you very much to everyone.
Good. Pass it on. And I think that's a very good prelude to this training session. I think if there is one main reason we train people, is that because we need to pass things on, right? And yeah, I think I can stop my training already and go home. But yes, if I were to actually reflect on that music, passing it on is one of the biggest objectives when you do training. But before we dive in and talk a bit more and get, the zest out of the training skills, I invite you to join me in a short prayer. Let's pray. Our Almighty God in heaven, whose Son have gone here on earth to train the disciples, to train the next leaders of the church, and have sent the Holy Spirit to continually lead the leadership, each and every individual, so that they become like Jesus. Today, dear Lord, we as the trainers would like to learn of your wisdom. Tonight, O Lord, we seek your wisdom so that we become not only good trainers, but at the same time, good learners of your faith. Be with us, O Lord. Grant us with open hearts and open-mindedness. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Now, I usually do this before I start training, especially on a face-to-face scenario. I always ask, why are you here? Okay? Which will actually lead us to our Jamboard. Okay? So it is very important that you really have your Jamboard, okay, ready. Because that's where we will have your interaction in. Okay? So I need you to go to page 2 of our Jamboard. The navigation is up top. This is the first slide. Let me put that aside. Okay. We will be using Jamboard, right, as an enabler for us. Okay. So I see a lot of you putting your names and here and there. Thank you for joining us, and I guess you get it right? You managed to get to the Jamboard page. But this time around, I need you to go to page 2. Okay? And my question is, what are your expectations? Okay? I'll give you 2 minutes to type in. Okay? What is your expectation? And then put your name just below. All right? So this is training skills. Or if I were to put it simply, training the trainers. Okay? So if we're going to do it that way, I want to get your perspectives. What really are you after, right, in this training session, and what you want to get out of this training session? Please spend it 1 minute to 2 minutes, right? And then try to type in here using a sticky note, right? What you have in mind. I'll wait. Again, page 2, right? Page 2 of our Jamboard, and I need you to actually type in what your expectations are. We have disciplining skills. Okay, so this is a very good expectation in line of training. Okay, so how do we then embed good discipline? I would say, or how do we then maintain discipline as we continue to do training? Right, good discipling rather. This is discipling. So discipleship, right? Discipleship type of skills. Good. Yeah, we will see that later on, the relevance. Enhancing skills. So you would want to enhance the skills probably in line with training. Okay, good. Anything else? Naalala ko last Friday, nag-talk din ako sa Pasay. Guys, no squibbling. Sabi nung teacher nila. I'll repeat to the elderly, no squibbling. So use the sticky notes. Okay. I think the default is pen. So I would need you to use the notes. Okay. Update skills. Probably been already on the field for a while and you want to have an update. Exercise my knowledge. I'll put it here. Different kinds of methods on training the young people. I think very relevant as well. Okay. What else? I see five. Probably these are from the APLA trainees. Probably if there are others. Okay. Good, good. Okay, so I hope we will be able to capture most of this, develop more skills, critical thinking, analysis in Christian leadership. Good one. These are very good indicators. Okay, so you've come to this training with this in mind. Okay, and that's very important. And it's also a very good introduction for you, right? As you do trainings, it's important that you have an end in mind. Okay, so that's why in the beginning of our training today, I've asked you, what do you have in mind when attending this training? A bit more later about this one, right? And just quickly, I would like to go through discipling skills, enhancing skills, update skills, exercise my knowledge, probably look at different kind of methods and training our young people, becoming more equipped, probably look for leadership maturity, develop more skills, grow critical thinking and analysis in Christian leadership. Good point. I'll dig a bit more on that side later. Samples of best practices in training leaders. We'll get to that as well in a bit. Okay, good. Thank you for the inputs. And I think this is a very responsive group. The reason why I asked this one, right, is in line with the question, right? Before we even start talking about training, we probably want to know, why do we train? Okay. And this actually kind of, as an APLA or as a PLA even, right? As a PLA or those who are actually doing the APLA segment already, it's important that before we get ourselves full with all the running trainings here and there, we should step back and ask ourselves, why do we train really? Okay. Or probably ask that to yourself, why am I training myself? Okay. And if we're going to ask that for you who is actually leading some trainings now, why do you train others? Right? That kind of question. And the very reason why this needs to be resolved, or this needs to be a question, is that it will boil down, what is your motivating factor, why you are training. Okay. Because that will actually lead to different end results. Okay. So going back to Jamboard, okay, page 3. Again, we have so many interactions that needs to do tonight. Why do you train yourself or others? Okay. Meron pala isang naligaw dito. Let me put that and put that on the second page. Ayan. Alright. So on page 3, okay. Why do you train yourself? Or why do you train others? Did you ever ask yourself? Have you tried asking yourself? Yeah? Is it worth asking? The reason why I need to ask this to you is that Why do you need to learn about different type of, different type of teaching others? Why, right? Why in the very first place? We need to go to that objective, right? Because otherwise, all of these are just, um, time killers. If we are not clear, why do you train yourself or why do you train others? Okay, so there are a few points that I would like to highlight behind this one, but now I want to get your point of view. Okay, so if I were to ask each one of you now, if you go back to our Jamboard, why do you train yourself? And if you are a trainer now, why do you train others? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thoughts coming in already. One said, share the abilities and experience that I have learned. Good. This is a very good and noble, I would say, purpose. Okay, I am so inspired by Jesus' training of obedience through submission. Another very good input. What else? Okay, guys, bring them in. Bring them in. Why do you train yourself? Why do you train others? Is a question that every trainer should answer. Okay, become an effective disciple. What else? Learn more skills. Be equipped as a good leader. Continue spreading the gospel and the good news. Be more, do more service to God and others. Very noble. Okay. Excel. Okay. Good. Good input. What else? Last 1 minute. Why do you train yourself? And why do you train others? To become mature leaders. Good. By the way, hindi limited sa isang input. If you have a lot of thoughts, you can put it in. Okay? So, hindi siya limited one thought each. Okay? If you have lots of ideas, then go ahead. Okay? Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. This is not a limited one slot at a time. Okay? So, you can put in as many ideas as you can. Okay? Is a commission. Making disciple is a part of spiritual growth. Learning activities. Okay? So that whenever we engage people, we train them to learn through the trainings. Okay, so that's good. Anything else? Any burning ideas? All right. Why do you really train others? Okay. Let me go back to my application of learning. Okay, there is an application of learning segment here. Okay. So if we take to update the skill sets of our people, good input as well, right? Because as new technology comes in or a new best practices flow in, we need to ensure that our skill set are still aligned. Okay. Good. And I think we have a bunch of inputs coming in from all of you, right? And if you still have, please don't hesitate to continue populating this page, but I'll get back to it in a while. Okay. Going back to my slide, we just completed our Jamboard interaction around it. Why? Why we train? Okay, I kind of bucket into at least three, overarching themes. Okay, one is to facilitate human resource maturity. Okay, the reason why we try to to impart as many as many as possible of our current learnings is that so our human resource will mature. O pwede namang turuan ng hayop, o pwede namang turuan ng aso, right? Pero kasi yung maturity level, ang requirement natin is for human resources. Okay? So those are good ones, but we need to facilitate human resource maturity, and that's us, right? The leaders, the future leaders, and all of that. And let's understand that as a human resource, as the human resource mature, it's important that they learn that only 10% retains through studying. Okay, the learning of human being is only able to retain 10% of all the studies that he does. So kaya kapag nagpa-facilitate ka ng training, kung lahat learning lang, 10% lang ng gusto mong i-impart sa kanila ang kaya nilang i-absorb. The rest, hindi na nila maalala. Okay? Which leads to the next bigger chunk. Okay? 70% of what you learned, right, best retained through active participation. So it's important na kapag ka magdi-design kayo moving forward, any type of trainings, ensure that a good portion of that time would be active participation. It can be through, through teaching, it can be through presentation, it can be through an output, right? For as long as they do hands-on exercise. Okay? So hands-on exercise allows them to retain 70% of what you taught them. If we are to equate that to maturity, you are able to drive them to mature 70% better if they have active participation. Right? So coming back doon sa mga expectations niyo na gusto kong ma-improve yung aking way ng pagtitrain or probably ma-improve yung sarili ko, right? So this actually gives us an idea that 70% of our learnings, which is done through active participation, gets retained. So it's a good mixture of that. And finally, there are segments which can only be provided through mentorship. And a very good 20% of our learning can be best received through mentorship. So it's important that each of our pathfinders or master guide trainees, even elder master guides like we do, right, need someone whom we view as a mentor, because they are the ones who will give you insights on things that you have never experienced before. Right? So a good 20% of that learning should be invested coming from these people. Summing that up, okay, gives you a very good and holistic approach to learning and therefore maturity. Okay? We train because we want to facilitate the maturity of our human resource. New trainees, existing mid-tier mature trainees, and those that are already, right, on their golden and prime maturity level. And then there's another segment, right, which is, I would call, enable tangible outcomes. It's important that we drive through our trainings the results that are at least tangible, or if not tangible, value adding. Okay? Because on the very beginning, right, resources or our pathfinders, master guide trainees, and all the ranks of learners that we have right now will be able to best decide, right, and best do what is needed if they are trained. Finally, if there are well-defined outcomes, right, that are actually set for these individuals, those provide a concrete basis so that they enjoy the training. Okay? There is an element of unlock independence and self-sufficiency. We do not want to start training people to start waiting for us to give them orders. Right? We do training so that they become self-sufficient, they become independent. Okay? Tangible outcomes or value-adding outcomes, if we are to actually reframe it. Okay? And finally, forge desirable futures. When we say forge desirable futures, there are so many futures that are possible. The negative future, the positive future, the desired future, and the ideal future. Okay? But the most important segment is that we breed new set of capable and dependable leaders. Kaya nakikita natin yung mga potential, alam niyo yun, potential na pag-deviate from what we know to be the, the foolproof approach to training, tapos isusubstitute ng something na hindi, that we feel that is not at par, right, to the existing way of working. Diba? Parang mayroong may hindi magandang dating sa atin, diba? So the same way, it's because you train And the desirable outcome is that you want to breed new set of capable and dependable leaders. As well, cultivate an environment of continuous growth. Training is not only for the new ones, it's also for us who are already, invested into this ministry for a long time already. And we want to create that continuity of growth, continuity of environment where each one can learn. That's why we train. Okay? And finally, right, we want to ensure that there is a continuity of the work of God as illustrated in the life and works of Jesus. So friends, summing up why we train is a very important segment for us PLA, APLA, so that whenever we look at each and every training modules that we see in our manuals, you have these three very important segments in mind, or three important themes in mind, right? That you are facilitating maturity of your people, that you are enabling them to have tangible outcomes in the future or value-adding outcomes in the future, and finally, because you are leading them into a desirable future, right? So these are some of the overarching reasons why we train others. And obviously, yung segments na, because, the love of God constrains me, that's why I'm doing all of this stuff, right? But at the end of the story, or at the end of everything, we are actually paving the continuity of the work of God in our lives, right? So that leads me to the next question, okay? And I will go back to our Jamboard, all right? So far, any question before I move on? Why you train others and why you train yourself, right? So parang napapansin ko dito, most of the buckets here would actually fall in any of the three. Okay? Three themes that I have discussed earlier. Become sufficient, to excel, right? To become the best version of you, to mature as a leader, mayroon ding to become more effective as a disciple of Christ, to enable application of learning, papasok siya doon sa tangible outcomes, or we call it value-adding outcomes. What else? Share abilities, right? So you want to actually build enable and sufficient future leaders. Okay, so all of these inputs kind of fall in any of those buckets, right? So that's the beauty of of having it done this way, so that we get all of those inputs covered. Okay, now we move on to the next segment, and this one is more, I believe this will be more interactive. Okay, my next question is, what do you think are the components of an engaging training? All of you did some trainings already in your life, probably. 1, 2, or even more. What do you think makes an engaging training? How does an engaging training look like? Kasi diba, naalala ko kasi kanina, sabi nyo, gusto nyo malaman yung mga different approach, right? Well and good, right? We can do that, but what do you think, or what do you think is an engaging training look like? Okay? So, mayroong sinabi dito, challenging task. Wow, right? I think like I know who this person is, but yeah, challenging task. And this collaboration, right? So these are the terms that are actually emerging nowadays. This word, attractive. What do you mean by attractive? I want to understand, what do you mean by attractive? Anyway, motivational. Okay. What else? What do you think are the components of an engaging training? If you're going to do a training, all of this should be there. That's the idea. Okay? Or at least a good portion of this list should be present. Okay? So if you are the trainer, how should an engaging training look like? Sige nga. Or probably, let's do it the other way around. If you are the student, what kind of activity or probably method that you think is engaging for you. Okay? Because I know, iba-ibang styles natin eh. Mayroong iba, excited na excited lang pero nagsasalita lang sila. May iba naman, excited na excited kasi may gagawin sila. Yung iba naman is talagang super, super inspired kasi mayroon silang gagawing exciting or medyo tawag nito, mayroon silang gagawin na medyo something out of ordinary, right? But again, let's put all of those ideas in. Again, all ideas coming in, put it in, all ideas, right? All of those ideas, right? And actually, I'm going to tell you that what we are doing today is actually one of those components. There is the concept of collaboration, right? There is a concept of, I would say, bringing in ideas, right? So, but let's complete the question, right? So there are the following: challenging tasks, collaboration, attractiveness. Probably the program itself should be attractive. The activity should be motivational, right? Practical applications of skills. There are dapat component ng training is a practical application of what you have learned. And then there is also lesson oriented, meaning to say they get something at the end of the story. Okay, embrace the challenges of a leader. Wow, this is a deep, right? Catchy. Wow, this is interesting, right? Catchy, right? Be skillful. Probably you need to demonstrate some of the skills, right? That the kids hidden, right? So the skills are actually demonstrated, should be up to date and helpful in every situation or circumstances. Meaning to say relevance, right? Should be relevant. Okay, what else? Meets expectations and interactive. Okay, so wala na ba? Meron pa ba tayong ibang ideas that we want to bring in? What you think are components of an engaging training? All right, so I guess that's all inputs that we have. And if you still have, please don't hesitate to bring it in here. That leads me to the next segment of my slide. I only have 2 slides, by the way. This one and the last one. Okay? And I believe this is a significant information that you need to know as you lead new trainings moving forward. Okay? The first one is that you know why you are doing this. Okay? And second is, while you are doing it, it should be something that you always look up to doing again. Okay? How to drive training engagement. Okay? So, the first component, right, is that the training should be adaptive, or you should be leveraging an adaptive training method, right? And it always is important that you start from your audience. Okay? What do you mean by start from your audience? Kapag ang iti-training mo ay mga 3 years old pababa, wag kang maggumawa ng sermon, di ba? Na lahat pa upuin mo sila kasi ang time span nila 5 minutes lang, right? Or dapat mong i-staggered, right? Yung discussion so that you get to to leverage their their energy. Or if you're going to talk to teenage, right? And you're going to create a training material for them, then you have to understand that you adapt to their kind of their kind of curiosity, right? Their level of curiosity, who they are as a person, you anchor to your audience. Ito yung tinatawag nating anchoring. Okay? Most of the trainings have been lost because the people attending the training don't know why they are there. So you should be able to articulate, why are you here? Okay? That's what we did early on the training. When I ask you to say why you are here. Okay? So I need you to anchor. So you have to anchor your training. Define what end result you need your trainee to take away. In this training, I want you to become better trainers. That's my end result. Okay? And as you build new training materials, right, you should be able to have that end in mind, right? Ano ba yung mga key points na ma-bring ni trainee, right, when he left the room? Okay? Or when we end the Zoom meeting, what are those end result that that person or the trainees need to take away from the training? Okay? And finally, it helps if you narrow your topic, but you ensure depth of expertise. I've seen a lot of trainings flying here and there na halos 2, 3 hanggang 4 na oras. Pagkatapos nun, wala nang naalala yung mga trainees. Okay? What I'm trying to say is that if you could chop that into simple segments. Sino po sa inyo nakatry na mag LinkedIn learning? Probably a good portion did. Yung mga hindi pa po nakapag-try, I'll relate with you. The training materials is 5 minutes long per session. And they have like 4 hours at length na overall pag pagdugtong-dugtongin mo lahat. Pero ang naging approach ni LinkedIn is that they chop the learning materials. Some would have videos, some would have text reading, some would have answer question and answer portions. Those different kind of activity chop into specific segments and specific focus. So narrowing the topic but ensuring that there is a depth of expertise. So friends, in our trainings, I don't expect you to hold trainings 1, 2, 3, 4 hours long. And then you ended up telling the story and all of the people listening to you are already sleeping. Right? So better to chop it into narrow topics, but ensuring depth of expertise. Okay? So that's on the approach, the methodology. Okay? And when we talk about different types of doing it, you can do actually maraming example na binigay dun sa material ni Sir Nilo, but some of those would be, you can break them into sessions. You can break your training into an individualized presentation. You can break your training into an interactive or probably role play type of presentation, right? But the end thought is that you should adapt your method to your audience. Okay? Adapt your method to your audience. Define what kind of takeaway you want them to have. And as much as possible, limit the discussion to what they need. Okay? Limit the discussion to what they need by narrowing your topic and ensuring that those narrow topics gets to their mind. Okay? So that's on the first bucket. Second is exchange of ideas to spark interest. If you notice, our learning materials provided by the GC, by the youth department, even the modules and the manuals we have never change significantly because that is a minimum baseline. Okay? What you should be facilitating as a master guide or as a trainer is not to stick to that. No, that's not the intent. Your role is to grow from there. Meaning to say, as you bring in that baseline into their mind, right? So today we need to do community service. Now let's start thinking how to make a community service relevant in our current state. For example, ngayon, pandemic. How do we do community service? Sige nga. And because you open the discussion into an exchange of ideas, what happens is that you will see their ideas coming into picture. You will see the participation coming into life, right? There should be a fuel of engagement in the discussion. Okay? So they should engage. Wala dito yung, kasi sabi ni director, ganito dapat eh. Yung sabi kasi ni captain, ganito dapat eh. Right? Try to break down everything that is, preventing them from sharing their wild ideas. Right? and ensure that everyone has a free flowing of that idea to spark the interest. Most of the training become redundant because someone is trying to force to everybody's truth an idea that they don't even agree with. And as a trainer, we want to do away from that kind of approach. We want to make sure that the training inspire the team to bring the best in their ideas. Okay. And then you also create a venue to do contrasting ideas, right? Contrast and parallel ideas. That way, the people in the team or in your training gets to understand what is the cons and pros. Most of our trainees only talk the good side. Example, going to hiking, good stuff. But nobody talk that someone can be bitten by a snake, someone can fall to traps, someone can be hurt. The negative side of things. This needs to be fully captured end to end to have that interesting and engaging discussion. Okay? So if you are driving a training, ensure that there is an idea to have contrasting conditions, contrasting settings, so that your listeners get to imagine what would happen if things go differently. Okay? And ito nabanggit ito kanina doon sa Jamboard, that there has to be real life application. When you create a session and share them or tell them something that they need to do, it has to be real problems, sometimes even hard problems. Guys, we have very talented young people in the church, and we cannot be giving them cheap thought out and I would say undermining the knowledge and wisdom that God has given them. So it's important that in our trainings we factor in reality. Okay, we factor in real problems and give them opportunities to solve hard and even difficult ones, if possible, for as long as you define what is the objective of the training. Okay, one example. It's hard to track. I believe one of the biggest problems that we have right now is it's so hard to track learning development of all of our trainees. Give them the opportunity to throw ideas. How do we alleviate that? So, and I think what's the important segment here is that once you allow them to actually give their ideas, they will give you, sir, what if we do it this way? What if we do it that way? What if we do it that way? Now you give them ownership. Okay, you do that. This one, you do that. This one, you do that. And they're very willing to do it. Okay? So it's a matter of, throwing in the discussion table things that matter most, things that are relevant, things that are real. Engage on that ideas. Okay? And finally, enable an application of learning. Some of the learnings that we have discussed in the training session probably never make it through the reality or to the reality application. Probably because it was taught out to be very theoretical. And sometimes probably because it was actually taught out as a hypothetical condition. Kaya at the end of the day, we discuss at length pros and cons, but at the end of the day, there's nothing substantial that was actually created out of it. So it's important that whenever we do trainings, there is a segment of learning and applying that to real life. Another very important segment is that there should be meaning. Minsan kasi parang ang nangyayari sa lahat ng training, nagiging sermon session eh. Nasa-try ninyo, right? Na yung nagtitrain, nag-sermon na siya, end to end. Natapos ng 2 oras. Okay, tapos na. Parang naiwan sa mga training. So what? What's the meaning, right? Parang naging another divine service na lang uli, right? What I'm saying is that divine service is very important, right? And we need that on some of the learning areas of the church, especially as we break that into the divine service, right? But for all other segments, please apply a different methodology, right? More than sermonizing, right? There are other alternatives that we can use that will drive meaning. What do you mean by meaning aids? Let me cite an example. You're talking about probably knot tying. So many people I've seen doing knot tying training is that they tell you how to tie things or how to do the ties, but they never tell you how to use it. Purpose is lost. So what I've asked, what I've done differently is I asked a friend who was very good at, doing an illustration of the knot ties. And then I asked him, can you also illustrate where to use it? Ito ang gagawin mo kapag itatali mo yung dalawang tali. Ito ang gagawin mo kapag kailangan mong pagdugtungin yung dalawang kahoy. Gantong gagawin mo kapag kailangan mo ng lashing. Gantong gagawin mo kapag... So, the meaning behind why we're doing all of these knots, why are we doing all of this lashing, right? Come to life, and if that happens, then there is a meaning. You only do this if you need to tie a carabao. You need to do this if you need to tie a ship. You need to use this if... That level of application needs to be there. The meaning. Why are we doing this anyway? Okay? Doon po na-develop yung critical thinking. Okay? Nabanggit kanina to drive or to create critical thinking eh. Though critical thinking is more on really asking the hard questions as to, is this true? Right? Those are the components of critical thinking eh, na is this verifiable? Can we validate this information? Critical thinking yan, right? On the application side, are you sure this is the right application of this learning, right? Yun yung critical thinking, okay? But in our enabling of application of learning, it's actually bringing those capabilities, those learning materials, and have that applied on things that are meaningful. By meaningful, we mean those that are add value to our lives. And finally, after you train them, you let the student lead the way and block any stoppers in their way forward. I've seen many trainers limit, their students on what they can do. Well, especially on the areas where there are dangers, yeah, that's correct. We need to do that. But that's why we need to clarify how those learnings can be applied so that we can allow them to go on a direction that we want them to go. And I think as a trainer, it's an important segment for us to actually tell them the negative side, right? As we talk about, social media, as we talk about all the emerging technologies that are around us, we don't only tell them about how to use it for the gospel, but we also tell them what are the dangers that are possible. So, long story short, as a trainer, first and foremost, why are you training? Second, that you know how to make your training the best training that our trainees should attend or can attend. And by doing so, we give them what we need, or we offer to them that important learning in their lives. Okay? So those are the only 2 slides that I have that I pick up from the training material that Sir Nilo actually gave to me. And I hope and pray, right, that you will be among the effective trainers. Okay? Any questions? Sige, questions tayo.
Sir, may tanong po, sir.
Yep.
What is the best effective training engagement? Kasi nakita po natin, sabi nyo kanina, most of the trainer ay parang sermon type. Diba? So, it is possible na pwede rin yung isang trainer na maging effective siya, ang kaniyang sabagat yung ganitong kanyang mga nile-lecture is based on his or her experience. It is effective to improve his training engagement. Di ba
Good
yung nakikita
question.
natin ngayon, di ba? Di ba yung nakikita ngayon, di ba? Sabi niya, para madaling maintindihan ng mga trainees, kailangan may application. Di ba? Based on his or her experience. Ito ba yung naging effective na sir? Way of training?
Good. In a training material, okay, in a training material, there is a theoretical segment, right? Especially if it's derived from a book or from a study. And there is also another segment, right, where you share real life examples. That's where personal experience can come in, and come in very strongly. Okay? So, and I think there is a caution that needs to be in place there, right? That you have to declare that this is your story, right? This is your story. It may be true to you, may not be true to others, which is why there has to be a layer of presentation. The first one is what is the well-known best practices. Okay. Second is this is how I've done it. Okay. May not be a best practice, right? But a personal application. Right? But there has to be a disclaimer there. Not all personal experience are considered best practice. Okay? So it's important that when you are sharing those experiences, you are not appearing as if this is the standard. Right? So it's important, right? That is a demarcation line, right? And yung portion po ng practicality, right? Is a good test, right? For any standard that is existent or to any training material that is out there, that there has to be a level of practical application. So if the experience will actually amplify the practical application, well and good. Okay? That's desirable, especially kapag kayon ay personal life experience. But again, if it actually relates to a standard way of doing things, and your life example does not actually subscribe to that, then it should not be construed that your life is the standard now. Okay, so we just have to manage the messaging of that point of view.
Kasi na-observe ko, sir, sa mga trainer nakita po natin, di ba? Yung parang nagsaset of boundaries doon sa topic na binibigay. Kaya sabi nga sa inyo, sinabi, it waste of time. Kasi sabi nga dapat, tawag doon kanina, sabi niyo dapat, agad maaari, direct to the point, di ba? Para at least those trainees can easily understand, can easily adapt what the training that they have during the time. Kaya dito po sa ating pinag-aaral po ngayong gabi ay nagkaroon tayo ng ideas, di ba? Kung talaga yung dapat kapag ikaw ay nag-engage ng training, ay dapat as much as possible, doon ka lang sa nakaset ng boundaries na yun. Kasi iba kasi parang sanga-sanga na wala na talaga doon sa main topic. Kaya nangyayari, instead na yung mga nakikinig ay magkaroon ng interest. Ano po nangyari? Kaya ngayon, may tinutulugan, nawala ng gana kasi nga nawala na doon sa pinaka-fence of training. Kaya dapat pala, ito yung ating natutunan ngayong gabing ito ay napakalaga ng method of training na ito.
Thank you, Sir Sol.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. Any other question on probably add? Any ideas that actually got sparked in your mind when I was telling some of these learnings?
Gusto ko lang mag-add, actually for many clubs na nabigyan ko lang training. Okay, doon sa training na ginagawa natin, kung naobserbahan ninyo, kung ako yung magdi-deliver ng activity or mga ganitong mga track of program, ay hindi ko ipupul blast yung isang topic na pwede mo namang gawin na 2 hanggang 3. Kumbaga, itututok mo yung pinaka ipupukol lang pag-uusapan lang. Kasi talagang pagdating sa Master Guide program, sir, hook. I was observed na talagang aantukin or ang iba naman ay nagmamadali para tapos agad. So, yun yung sinasabi ko na pumapasok tayo sa mga dealing with other relationship with that program na talagang hindi ka mismo, ikaw leader, naka-focus o naka-attention sa sarili mong activity. Kaya medyo ganyan na mangyayari. So, here in our training, dinadrive talaga dito yung engagement natin para magkaroon tayo ng isang pag-a-apply na ang ating mga trainees or mga kabataan ay talagang may matututunan sa mga pinagagawa mo.
I'll add on sa sa adaptivity ng training Meron akong na-encounter na club. Ang trainees niya, young professionals, gusto ng director parang first year college ang treatment. Umupo kayo dito kayo gagawa, isa-isa ninyong i-memorize, ganto ganon. So parang sa mind ng mga young professionals, these are not relevant, right? Or probably the approach is so outdated. They can be done in many ways, in other words. Okay?
Yes.
And as a leader or as a trainer, right? It's our role to actually recognize, right? Recognize how, and actually even get the consensus of your trainees on how to best reach them, okay? On how to best get their engagement, okay? One thing yung we will not reduce the efficacy of the training, right? That's always a given. But it's another na what is the best method for them to be able to give their best engagement. Okay? So for that, I think that's an ongoing yun na learning para sa trainer, right? Na alam mo kung ano ba yung best way to actually get the best of your trainees. Especially kapag mayroon kang engagement na kailangang hiningi, and it seems na yung current approach mo is not working, right? Or you're not able to get the right response from your trainees. And for that to happen, so you have to ask them, right? So guys, this seem to be not working. And I think you have to exercise a level of transparency with them as well by speaking directly out of it. Guys, of the assignments that I have given you, only one turn back. Why? Right? Hindi yun hintayin nyo ito hanggang end pa ng training saka kayo magtanong, why? Then they will come back, sir, tapos na namin to 10 years back Right? Are there any better ways to actually do this differently? Had you done that conversation earlier, it could have been, a lot easier, a lot engaging, right, down the road. But long story short, all right, it's our call as a trainer to ensure that we get that alignment, okay? Na what is the best engagement model for the team? At saka wala po itong hindi po ito one solution fit all. Okay? Especially as we meet different different backgrounds, right, of our trainees. And there has to be a level of flexibility from both the trainer and the trainees so that you meet halfway. Okay? Any other questions? Ngumingiti si Sir Kiser, parang may gusto ata siyang i-share.
Okay, go Sir Kaysor. It's your time, no? This is a APLA program. You can share anything. About Sir Kenneth Patilan.
Now, with regards to what was shared earlier, I'd like to just to supplement what we have discussed. I think the right word for what we really need is number one, feedback. That's the word, no? When we say feedback, it has something to do with evaluation. Bakit kasi ng word na evaluation, para kang i-judge ba? But then looking on to the proper definition of it, no? It's not really the participants, no? Hindi yung participants ang ini-evaluate natin, no? What we really look into is I effective? Is my approach really what is needed, no? And when we train, is the training really what they need, no? Para bang magte-train ka, but then again, hindi naman nila kailangan yun, no? We understand that when we have the program, especially for pathfinders and for, well, let's not be specific to PLA and APLA. No, I would like to be pointing out, this is for master guides in general, regardless of whether you are a youth director or whether you are just newly invested. That doesn't matter. No. What I would like to emphasize is, are we really doing things effectively? No. And when we actually perform or do trainings, have we got the information beforehand? Like, how many am I going to talk to? What is their age group? What are their skill sets? What are the previous trainings that they have undergone with? Okay? Sino ang director nila? Probably with that kind of information, you would know yung expertise niya, and which ones should you be actually supplementing them with, di ba? Hindi tayo hindi tayo nakikipag-competition when we do training. Ay, mas magaling ito dito, itong tao ito mas magaling diyan. So when we do training, parang okay, so siya, ito ganyan, no? And we don't really want to get in term is being siloed on that specific skill set. Like, ay, si Master Guide Hook, magaling yan dito. Diyan lang siya. Kapag meron akong topic tungkol dyan siya ilalagay. No, with Master Guides, we are multi-talented, multi-skills. No, chapter 3 of the basic staff training course, if you have read it, no, one of the traits of a Pathfinder leader is we master diversified skills. No? If you haven't done that yet, then that's a challenge for everyone. Hindi naman tayo basta lang, okay, naging master guide ka na, tapos na lahat. No? Yeah, going back to what I would like to emphasize, no, what we really need is feedback. No? That's one thing that we might need to grow. No? Hindi ibig sabihin that you are already there, diyan ka na, okay ka na-invest ka na master guide, you were awarded to be a PLA, you were awarded to be APLA, and then incoming, meron tayong, ano yung bagong training program natin? AYMT. And those are actually specified specialized skill sets na probably hindi natin napapagbigyan ng pansin. No? But counselorship, no, instructorship, and those skills na probably we need to be emphasized with. But then again, things should be relevant. No? So when we train, of course, we would need to have feedback. And another one, which I mentioned earlier, yung gathering ng information beforehand. No? So those two things actually are summarized in one word: information. No? Yeah. So before you set out, and then after you set out, you get everything in line. And then the next time, oh, I can do better. I can do training better. And especially, moving to a different one, ito yung gusto kong i-emphasize. You should know your people very well. If possible, personal, on a personal level. Especially when you are training pathfinders, when you are training master guides, no? You should be connecting with them on the personal level. Not just, okay, siya yung director. Okay, we do things ganyan, no? Okay, may resource person tayo, si Sir Milo, magdi-discuss ng ganyan. But then again, that's the, especially with us, na instructors, when we were taken out to be part of the camping, when we were given the opportunity to, kagaya ng ginawa ni Sir Hook just now, no, to share to us part of his expertise or probably knowledge of what we have, what he has, no. But being an instructor doesn't limit us to the skill sets that we have. No? One thing that we can take advantage of is actually getting to know someone within the group. No? If you cannot reach out to everybody, just pick one. That's enough. No? Like Master Guide Jacob Garau. No? When we have interactions, no? Yeah, we can actually, kagaya niya, no, hindi na siya. Yeah. So when we do, when we do interactions during the training, you get to let them know as well, personally, no. So those are things. No? One is summarized in information. Number two is connection, and of course another thing that we can do, no, which is probably medyo nabanggit kanina but was not very much emphasized, no. Training should be fun. Ulitin ko training should be fun. Regardless kung interested yung participants mo pag upo niya doon sa session mo. Pagpunta niya doon sa session mo, ay, alam ko na yan. No? But then again, when you make it fun, regardless kung interested siya o hindi, masisiya siya, may matututunan siya pag nandun na siya. Regardless kung matanda na yan, kung aral na siya. No? But then, if it's something fun and engaging, no? With all the we have discussed, no? We have games, we have practical applications kung yan ay first aid talagang meron kayong scenario. And if it's camping skills, we do it on demonstration. Kahit na tayo ay online, we can still give, we can make it engaging by giving them, this part, ikaw magdi-discuss niyan, no? Try natin, i-video natin, no? And then demonstrate natin kung paano yung lasting skills, no? Not trying skills, kailan mo siya gagawin, and so on, no? Then of course, we have to prepare them beforehand. But then again, still, training should be fun. Yeah. So those are 3 items that I'd like to point out, which probably would supplement our session this afternoon, this evening. And I hope we were able to share better.
It's Masagid Kisser, right? As always. And I think, I've actually reflected it back here, right? That feedback loop is actually would be more on how to become effective trainer moving forward. Most of the trainings that I have attended has never asked, so what do you think about the training, right? Or never ask about what do we need to improve moving forward, right? We never ask those for some reason. I don't know why, right? But I think if we are actually intending to grow, to become effective leaders moving forward, then we should be more generous at accepting these feedbacks, right? And for those actually providing feedback, obviously not on a negative note, right? With an interest to actually grow the other person. But more importantly, those who have been given feedback should know that feedback are gold mines, I would say. My boss always tell me that feedbacks are always gold mines that are given back to you by the people you serve, people you work with, people you actually trained, and cherish those, okay, and learn from those. All right, so thank you very much. I think and the fun element, I agree completely, right? That every training should be, I would say there should be a level of humor there, right? So that you have the fun element, the element where we need to be serious, right? Especially if we are making decisions. And more importantly, if we are actually looking at the interest of saving souls, right? So there has to be a component where we have to be serious. We have to be, to have fun. And at the same time, have that, meaning at the end of the day, all right? Or why we're really doing these things. Okay, so that's the wrap, right, of my training session for this evening. Quite short, and I hope you enjoy, right? You enjoy the training.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Hogan. May I say something? Sir, before that, can we hear something about the training engagement from Master Guy? Say something about the training that are now we are discussing. So we need to hear from you. Share this engagement.
Sir, may question ako eh.
Okay.
Mameli.
Wala kasi naka-mute ako, baka mag-echo. Sir, kasi it's about training skills ang pinag-aralan natin ngayon. So, is it inborn ba ito o naka-acquire? Kasi, di ba, marami po tayo nakikita, lalo na sa sales, na very convincing sila sa regarding sa mga skills na ganito. So, is it inborn o na-acquire siya or talagang kailangan po natin aralin talaga?
Good question, ano? There are skills where you're really good at, especially cognitive skills. There are friends who are actually blessed with some talent around that. However, a very good portion of what is happening around us is not innate to us, right? We are born in an
Ako
environment,
talaga.
and in that environment, there are existing things that we don't know at all. So we have to learn them. Kaya papasok po doon yung experience right? And how you actually get into those experience and how well is your training behind that. And you can actually impart the best practices out of your experience out of that. But going back to the question, is it acquired? Is it hereditary, right? Maybe that kind of question. Actually, it all boils down to some of the hard skills that needs to be learned. Number one is obviously how you communicate your thoughts, especially on the topic that you are trying to share. So many of us are so skilled at doing it, but could hardly articulate why, right? Or could hardly communicate, the value of what they're doing. But they know at their heart that it's really value adding. There has to be meaning behind it. And probably to actually translate back na mayroon tayong nakikita na mga very good at laway pero wala talaga silang skills. Right? So that's another dimension as well, right? So we need to strike the balance. Kaya as much as possible yung mga nilalagay natin ng mga trainees are those whom we know, right? Have gone through the rigorous training itself. Not just because it's laway. Right? Now, coming back, final answer is that I think every single skill that we have is something that we don't know when we know when we get out of this world. We either learned it through our daily lives, either other people shared it to us through another training as well, and we honed that personally, right? So for me, right, a skill, right, or a skill either acquired or talent is actually given to you for a purpose. Okay? And in that purpose, I hope one of the purposes that you have in heart is that to be able to share that to others as well, who are not so blessed, right? To actually have the kind of training and exposure that you have. Probably Sir Kaser would have another kind of exposure that I don't have, right? Or probably Mameli on some of the life segments of the experience that you have. So it actually boils back into a parang a net, right, of experiences that is experienced by other people. So in an organization, you don't necessarily have the expert of everything, right? Better if you have a good portion of that expertise that you honed, but the moment you actually engage the collaboration that could exist across different skilled individuals, there you see some of those that you are not good at, other people would be able to cover for you, right? So we kind of leverage those kind of skill. And for the ones that are really good at, then other people may be leveraging you to deliver that. Okay? So long story short, not all are skilled, right? To a certain space, but if you do are skilled, then by all means, right? Share those across. And yeah, I believe our good Lord have given us very powerful minds to actually learn, right? In an environment where we actually play in right now. And it's important that we leverage that mind, right? In learning new things. And probably nakikita ko lang dito na limitation is that you would say, ito lang kasi yung alam ko eh. Or some people would say, ay matanda na ako, hindi ko na kayang gawin ito. Or probably, ay bago itong technology na to, so hindi ko na kayang i-adapt, right? So probably there has to be a growth mindset, right? I maybe don't know this, but let me tinker it over. I think ganun yung mga mindset ng Master Gate. We may not know it all, right? But we can tinker on it, right? We can tinker and find out and probably find better ways of doing it down the road. I hope that answers it, Mamil.
Yes, sir. So, kailangan lang po natin i-develop ko ano po yung meron na po sa atin. Kaya nga, tama po yung pinag-aaralan natin para lalo po tayong matuto. So, talagang big help po yung mga ganitong pamamaraan para sa ganun ay lalo po tayong mag-excel at maituro po natin sa ating mga pathfinders. Gayun din, seek po natin ang ating Panginoon na ibigay niya yung tamang sa atin. Kasi yun naman ang kailangan natin eh. Seek first the kingdom of God. Lahat po ng bagay, ibibigay niya sa atin. Thank you very much, Sir.
Yep.
Okay, how about Master Guide Emily Pacardo for the last anong gusto mo i-share? Master
Sir,
Guide Emily.
yes, sir. I just learned from the lecture that conducting trainings is really not an easy task because especially for the lecturer, the challenge is on how you can engage your audience to be interested in the lecture that you're giving. And also, of course, the preparation for the lectures that you need to share to your listeners. But of course, in the Bible it says, if you lack wisdom, then God is inviting us to ask from Him, and He will give it to us liberally. So I think there's no easy and hard task if we really rely on the wisdom that God is giving us through His words, and of course, with the information that we can get from, of course, the in the group in some resources that we can get from in the internet, and of course the knowledge that we have gained through the lectures that we have heard during our training also. So I think being trained is really very important so that we can be of help in sharing what we have learned, so that we can also train other leaders to do the task that God has commissioned. Thank you, Sir Nilo, and thank you for the lecture.
Okay, thank you very much. Siguro mag-open ako ng chance for PLA na makapagtanong sa ating lecturer. Okay, magtanong po kayo PLA. Chance po ninyo ngayon. Okay, tanong po kayo. Tatalon po kayo dyan sa training na ito, kaya dapat may matutunan na kayo. Na-advance kayo masyado na ngayon. No? Privilege nyo ngayon. Okay, nakahintay si Sir Hook. Oh. May-mention ba ako ng name para magtanong kayo? Okay, mahiya. Siguro unahin natin si Master Guide Raynel Manangan from Northern Luzon Mission.
So Nilo, before we go on with that part, no, I think pwede nating i-take advantage ng Jamboard, Sir Hawk, kung pwede mo ba siyang gamitin.
Okay.
While somebody is speaking, you can post questions on the Jamboard, no?
Yes.
So we can prepare and tuloy-tuloy tayo sa discussion.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
So actually we have only 10 minutes na lang to close this activity. So come on, PLA. I think wala gusto magtanong. Mga kabado. Okay, anyone from the from the activity, nasaan na kayo? Wala na kayo.
So guys, probably you notice na ang thought processing natin the moment we become APLA, right, is geared towards enriching our teaching curriculum. Okay? Hindi na tayo yung ano ba yung curriculum? Hindi na. Ang tanong natin is how do we make this curriculum the best ever curriculum, right?
Yes, sir.
So wala na tayo doon sa ano ba ang checklist, or ito ba ang tamang checklist, tapos na tayo doon sa discussion ng PLA. Sa APLA po is that how do we enrich this learning material so that we get the best out of it, right? Yeah. So, and I hope doon sa mga PLAs natin right now would obviously will not be able to experience going through the APLA trainings. We hope and pray that you actually leverage some of these learnings as we go through the AYMT, right? I think the AYMT is at our doorstep now. And I think yung pagtitrain ng trainers is actually continuing, a continued effort, especially as we introduce a new learning module, right? So, yeah.
Kaya yan, isa sa mga sample ng naging training natin ngayon, akala kasi nila itong like this one, itong EMC, emergency care. Kala nila magle-lecture, magtuturo sa kanila ng kung paano gagawin yung pagtatali. Sabi ko, no. Kailangan i-apply niya na yun. Kumbaga, ina-assume na natin na alam na ninyo yung gagawin nyo kasi nandiyan na kayo sa taas. Hindi yun laging kayong tuturuan. Ngayon, dapat talaga sa sarili ay marami na silang na re-response sa kanilang activity na talagang dapat pala sila na pala yung nagbibigay, hindi na sila yung binibigyan pa. Okay? So since walang gustong magtanong, walang gustong maglakas ng loob sa PLA.
Nilo, meron.
Yes.
Meron.
Meron. Sige.
Jacob,
Kung meron,
Jacob,
sir.
go.
Okay, Jacob. Ito, yan.
Sige po. Thank you po. Sir, I have a certain question kasi you mentioned po with regards to parang ini-ignite niyo po sa mga ng interest yung mga learners with regards to presenting any lectures whatsoever, and that is to to challenge them to think about the whys in the lecture. So maybe ask her if that would be an essential element po na i-consider ng mga teachers on inviting them. Why would they do this not in a monotonous way? Para tatanungin mo na why ganito ganyan tapos pares na naman yung sagot. Pero kumbaga, just like what you have done, sir, sa chat board na gagawin niyo po siyang engaging question without them realizing na tinatanong niyo na po pala sa kanila why would it be so helpful na yung present niyo po sa kanila so that they would be focused sa kung ano talaga yung ma-expect nila po sa lecture. So I guess would this be an important element that they would consider, that the teachers would think na okay, i-focus ko muna sa kanila, i-open ko yung understanding nila kung bakit nila kailangan ito, saan nila ma-apply ito.
Let me frame the question, Jacob. Okay, so your question is is it important to validate the whys? Okay, because that will fuel, right? That will fuel the learning outcomes. Big sabihin, kasi yun yung magde-define ng yung purpose nila or meaning after the activity. Actually, I've been exposed to this at the corporate world already, if I were to be honest, right? I've come to realize that on all trainings that I have attended in the corporate world, they always ask, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And I said, yeah, why do we really do this in the first place, right? And the moment you stop from just moving and start asking why, then you get to actually rock your core a bit, I would say, and crack yourself a bit so that you get the final on the real gist of the purpose, really, why you are doing a certain thing, right? Now, should teachers adapt to that method? Your call, right? But what kind of value it will bring? Number one is that you got to cut to the clutter and get to the right point, right? The clutter is, gusto kasi natin gawin 10 things together. Pero ang valuable pala dun, isa lang. Why go through 10 if you can focus to one, right? So the asking of why is like a knife that would cut through the clutter and then get you to the right, the right meat that you are trying to really do, right? Without having to go around the bush and then tapos na yung oras, saka pa lang kayo nagtatackle ng very important segments. Now, from a learner's perspective, if your teacher did not ask you why, then you ask yourself, why am I going to attend this training in the first place? Okay? At least make that as a discipline for yourself, I would say. It would be a very good exercise. For me, lalo na ngayon, online, ang dami, naglipana, training dito, training doon. But you have to stop running for each and every trainings that you find online and start asking, why do I need this training again? Right? For what purpose are we really doing this? Kaya nga, right now, I've been very conscious at selecting what Zoom meeting I attend to, especially if it's unclear why are we in that meeting in the first place. Okay? So kasi tulad nito, 14 kayo lahat. Isang oras na ako nagdadaldal dito. We didn't only waste 1 hour. We wasted 14 hours already because it's multiplied by the number of attendees. Okay? So if we are not clear on why are we here in the first hour, right, 8 to 9, then I think that's 14 hours wasted for all of us already. Huh? Okay? So take it that way.
Okay, sir. Thank you po.
Okay, no more?
Maganda ko ng isa pa. No, I just remember,
Okay.
no, since binanggit ni Selfo kanina yung corporate world now, I'd like to also put everyone's perspective on a business-minded person. No? I'm working on a different, since we look into this as ministry, no, but then again, I'd like to broaden our perspective. No, you look at this as something that you do for a livelihood. People in the social media, no? Lalo na yung mga gumagawa ng content sa YouTube, sa Facebook, sa Instagram, have you ever heard these phrases whenever they do videos? If you like this video, please comment down below, like, share, and subscribe. Ha? Ulitin ko ha. If you like this content, comment down below. You like, share, and subscribe. You know the reason why they do that? Unang-una, syempre may kikitain sila doon. But then again, no, it's something that they can bank on na, uy, I'm reaching out a lot of people with my content. Uy, some people are interested, and then some people would actually comment some bashing stuff or negative. But then again, we get to see a bigger picture. If we as instructors, as master guides, can do the same. I'm not saying na gumawa tayo ng video, you like this, hindi ganun, no? What I mean is that if we are looking into a broader perspective, like even if we are doing ministry, we do it in a perspective that we are actually gaining souls for Christ. Not money, no? But money comes along with ministry. But then again, we gain souls for Christ. No? Click down below, comment, like, share, and subscribe so that we would know. Yeah? I think that's it for for what I can share again.
Nice application na Kaser.
Very good. Kino-connect mo ha. Okay. So thank you very much, Sir Hope. I hope maraming na-learn dito sa iyong topic, especially the APLA. Kasi ang APLA natin talaga namang medyo malalawak na yung kanilang isipan at malalalim na. Pero hindi ibig sabihin masyado silang matataas ng tao. Hindi. Matangkad pa tayo dyan. No? Malalaki pa rin tayo dyan. Kaya lang talagang there are times talaga na talagang hindi mo marireach out kapag ang isip mo nandun lang. Kaya kailangan, isipin mo bakit kaya nila nagagawa yun. So, ibig sabihin, meron silang way sa kanilang life na talagang nagre-reach out sila, no? Nagti-training sila. Kahit na train na sila, they're still reading something at saka talagang nagre-reach out pa talaga sila. So, since wala na po, gabi na po tayo, we can close this program. Bigyan po natin ng palakpak si Master Guide Hawk ng sabay-sabay po. Buksan po mga camera. Sir Hawk, yung ating pong certificate ay sa linggo pa ho ibibigay for all the lecturers or the presenters. So kung may chance kayo makabalik, merong freebies po yon, no? Malaking teddy bear. Okay.